Welcome, Jan, to Metallarium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Mob Rules, this new album, Rise of the Ruler, and more things related to the metal war in general. So we started by asking, how are you doing today? How is the band the last couple of years? Because your previous album was released 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's a long time. Yeah, long we are very fine now. We just released our new album, had our release party. We played on Saturday here in our hometown, and it feels good that after this long time, it now finally there's a new record out there, and we got a lot of very positive receptions. So we couldn't be more happy right now. And yeah, as you said, it's a long time. 2018 was our last release, so you can imagine it feels great to
Mhm.
have now done new material and everything goes on again. So like myself, I'm very fine.
Great. So, and when do you decide to start the songs for this new album? It was during the last couple of years, or perhaps any songs come rescue for the previous albums. Who knows? So, when do you decide to starting writing songs for this new album?
That's a good question. So normally it just goes hand in hand with each album. So normally when we finished one album, we then recently began new material. Last time it was different because we were just finished with everything concerning Beast Reborn. We played 3 tours. It was more than we've ever played for an album before, and that was exactly when Corona hit in. And at this point, we were really at zero. So we were just done with everything. We had to skip only one concert due to
Mhm.
the pandemic. That was good, but at this point, we had nothing, and then we couldn't meet each other, and all the annoying thing that happened together with Corona. And this was a tough situation for us because other bands
Mhm.
maybe had something they were already working on that they could finish or do on their own, but we couldn't meet each other, so it took a long time till we could start with new material. But when we had time to meet each other, we had some internal stuff that has to be clarified. So due to the process, our drummer has left the band, and it was a lot of things. I would say in English, there's a term we had to clean our laundry. So that was about time to do a lot of talks in our rehearsal room. It was like a psychotherapy a little bit for us. And then really new material began 3 years ago. So then Klaus and Sven started to meet again to write first songs, and so over time it evolved more. We wanted to
Mhm.
do something also for our anniversary, so our celebration day box came also in between, so we had to finish this one in between. But I would say 3 years ago we started new material, and last year we really digged into the new material and started the recordings and the lyrics and all this stuff. So there was 2 years of preparation and 1 year of really hard work until it was finally done.
Mhm. Oh, okay. So a lot of things happened during to the
Yeah,
recording process of this new album. Okay. So now, well, now the band has has more than 10 albums in your career. The band is well known around the world with the stuff of heavy power metal or power metal in general. So how do you see now the power metal nowadays? Compared to the previous years that with the power metal appeared by the end of the 90s, it was when Rhapsody appears, a lot of bands appears at that moment. But now
yeah.
there's more releases, there's more so, and now the power metal is like a very niche for people. So how do you see the power metal nowadays? Is good, is bad?
I think it got better than it was long time for a long time. So I came out of this area when power metal was really at its peak. It was the time when also Maboot was founded, and yeah, bands like Rhapsody, Edguy, or the Staff Blind Guardian, the first beginnings. It was a huge thing in the 90s, and then we're at the end of the 90s. That I always call it the golden age of power metal, and you're right. During that period, during the 2010s, there wasn't much in power metal, and I think a lot of stuff has changed now with the rise of Halloween again, with bands like Powerwolf or Organ and so on. There are new power metal bands that really stand for this new generation, this new kind of power metal. And I guess they are quite different. They are mostly have a main theme that they carry around. Bands like Sabaton, bands like Powerwolf, they all have their special topic. But it's also stuff like Avantasia and Halloween that keep the scene alive. And for myself, I have the feeling that power metal gets much more appreciated than did some years before. And even for a band like us, we get rediscovered a lot. So people notice that we are still from that golden era of power metal and still exist and well get appreciated for this. And this is what I think is a very good thing that power metal now has. It somehow has evolved, but stands very friendly to its roots. So and it's great to have all these old bands who are still alive and bring out new stuff. Hammerfall to mention, they're also a Gravedigger. They still do a lot of great work today, and I'm quite happy that it is like it is. And I hope this will carry on, and it stays cool to be in a power metal band. It was different some years ago.
Hmm. Okay. Well, this album is like 3 days older now because this album was released in the last weekend. And
Yeah.
now, how it was, you mentioned me something that is a good reception, the reviews, etc. So, for in general, how it was the reception for this rise of the ruler, how it was the reviews, the comments, the expectation from the people, etc. And how, for example, how do you take a bad review, for example?
Oh, I love reading reviews, of course. You do so much work and too much yeah, thinking and creative effort in an album. And at a certain point, you're in a bubble. You only listen to this, you hear everything that could be different. And even when it comes to the sound, so is the snare loud enough and so on. And at a certain point, it's good to step a little bit back. Then it's time for release. And that it feels good to read the reviews and see if people get what you want to tell. I mean, when we write songs, we have some ideas in mind. When I write lyrics, I have a concept in mind. And of course, we write music because we like it, but of course, we also write it for the people and for the fans who hopefully get what we want to tell. And if I read reviews that are good and that recap the things that we had in mind by writing it, and it's a great feeling. If some songs like Future Loom, for example, it has this kind of power metal style that was common in the 90s, in the end of the 90s, and now we read reviews that people hear the song and say, wow, it reminds me of the old times of power metal. And we say, yeah, that's what we wanted to achieve, and great to see that you get it. And yeah, of course, it's that's the kind of our salary. If people give us good feedback and enjoy what we are doing, then this helps us to to stay alive and go on with our art and what we do. So it's a very intense time now to read all this stuff, and I'm I couldn't be more happy that most of the receptions are very good and even better than for the last albums we did. And so it feels like our evolution and all this cleaning our laundries, as I said, all these talks and all the struggles we had in the band seemed that it had worked, that we could start from a clean ground and somehow just reflect in the music as well. It seems so. So yes, I read the reviews and I enjoy it.
Okay. Now, well, we are talking about more the promotion from this Rise of the Ruler. So, what kind of promotion do you have for this new album? Perhaps you will embark some tours, present more videos, or what kind of plans do you have? Or perhaps you're already working a new album because this album has 7 years with difference with the previous one, and perhaps you have more songs to release later.
Now, now this time the promotion we did a lot of talks and work and tried to find out in the last few years. Okay, what is our rules? What are our trademarks? What is the thing people like on us and what maybe makes us somehow unique or differs from other bands. So, and we found out that most people liked what we did in the beginning with our first two albums, Savage Land and Temple of Two Suns, where we had this concept story, we had these somehow Mad Max, Waterworld, whatever, dystopian topic. And we even had a band mascot, the ruler, how he's called, the guy on the cover. And people miss it somehow. And we somehow missed a little bit of our track or our special trademark. And so we decided this time, why don't we go back to also these old days and continue the story of the first albums, and then even so continue the style we started there. So we wrote a concept story that concludes to the story before, and this time we did it all out of one hand. So we did a huge video production, and we found a perfect guy for this, Rainer Frenzen, a guy from Germany who did 4 videos with us. We wanted to do 2, but in the end it was 4 of them. How to call it, where we had some live action of our story, and we also used the settings for our band photos, for our outfits, for our stage decoration. So it all goes now with one huge topic that cycles back to our first days. And this was something we could tell the people. Okay, we are back to Savage Land, like our first single was named. And if you liked the old stuff and if you somehow lost us during the years, maybe this is a good chance to meet us again. And so there's no new album in the beginning right now, but we maybe will continue to dig out our old albums and also to stay in this world. And maybe we will do something with the old material. And let's see what it will be. But we have some ideas that we will more connect to our roots in this way.
Okay, okay, amazing, amazing. So one thing that now we're talking about more about this new album. So one thing that captured my attention about this new one is that you decide to change the concept of the album. It's more now you have more like the uh, cyberpunk idea, like Mad Max, these kind of things. Is something related with this. So why you do, so how do you relate the music of the band with the meaning of the album and obviously all the visual topic, because right now you are like a cyberpunk westerns, so these kind of things related. So how do you relate all these concepts with a new approach for the mob rules on this new album?
The good thing that it somehow is our old approach. So it's not something totally new. It feels more like going back to what we once started. And what we did in the lyrics is that we, on the one hand, try to tell a story, of course. So if you listen to each song and listen to it in a row, then you will get this whole story. But you can also take each song for itself, and each song has on the meta layer its own meaning. So, for example, when you think about Back to Savage Land, in the story, it's the part where a group is forced to leave their home and somehow feels joyful for this new chance in life. But this could also be a metaphor for every change that happens to somebody. When I wrote the song, I had somebody in mind who just had a very hard divorce. So he was forced to leave his old home and starting over a new life. Or I knew some other guy who started into a new job, and it's also connected. So you can read our songs as a story, but you can also read the story behind and make each song your own. And this is what we did all the years with Mob Rules. But I feel by giving us this certain look again, this dystopian, Mad Max steampunk look, however you will call it, this is something that the people really like, because the music is, of course, also entertaining. And I'm quite sure that this is something we missed in the last years. We delivered always good songs, and the songs will also still sound like our bands. But if you give people something that they can rely on, and if it's just some kind of lyrics, is it just a certain look, or if they just can say, okay, my rules are this dystopian Mad Max band, so why not? I think it makes it easier for the fan to connect with the band, and it makes for us easier to interact with the fans. But because now we can play with this look, we can make our stage decorations, our photos, our covers, our artworks, and everything feels now more connected and, like, for me, more entertaining. So I would say this is what power metal somehow is all about, and we had it 30 years ago, so no one. So why don't go back to this thing? I think it's a natural good step to do it.
Okay, 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 okay. So now, well, mob rules appears in the world when appears in the world when when explosion of the power metal appears. Either the power metal was created in the 80s by Halloween at that moment, but then the power metal started a new era, or like the real era, when the Rhapsody appears in the world and a lot of bands. I remember your first album, Savage Lands, appeared with one of the bigger labels at that moment, Lip Music, because live
Yeah.
music brings a lot of power metal at that moment, because Rhapsody, Luca Turilli, I don't know, a lot of bands there. So now the situation of the power metal is something a lot of people thinks that the power metal is stagnated with the old sounds, with the old influence, with the old things. There is no new power metal bands that has brings the attention for the media especially. And we are not talking about Sabaton or Powerwolf, because they have in the world more than 20 years, so there are no new bands. But the new
Mm.
bands into the power metal is not reflecting a new things. Is we are just we are when I hear a new band into this world power metal, we are hear bands from the influence from the bands from Halloween, Blind Guardian, Rhapsody, Stratovarius, and the list continue. So now, how do you see now this topic about the power metal is one of the styles that is stagnated with the old influence and not bring new things to this topic?
Yeah, this really, what I say, now that you mention it, you're probably right. Yeah, each new band somehow relies on the old stuff. What often happens that they start to blend with the newer bands start to blend with other music genres. So you have some power metal influences, but then connected with some death metal stuff or with some technical stuff or whatever. But I guess you are right. The most innovative bands that I think about are okay. They're even some years ago. It's hard how time goes by. Do you know this when you think about a band and think they are new, and then you? I had just this Evergrey in mind because then just released new stuff, but okay, they are even older than us, I guess.
Mhm.
So yes, somehow I think you are right. I never thought about it, but it's power metal. It feels like it reached a certain end, or that nothing new comes out in this genre. That's a sad situation. You're probably right.
Mhm.
I hope that it isn't like this. Yeah, now I think about all Ogram, but they're still 20 years old. Okay, but we all get old. It's terrible.
Mm.
Um, yeah, some new bands, when I think about for metal or bands like this, they celebrate also this old stuff by over embracing it. Yes, you're right. Okay, I don't have an answer for this. I guess you're right. Power metal has somehow reached a certain end, but I hope that this will change. And maybe it's a chance that now more power metal bands continue to do their stuff, and power metal is more appreciated. That hopefully some new younger bands will appear who take the torch and maybe invent something that is newer. But yeah, sad answer is we are also one of the old guys, so it seems like that you're right.
Hmm. Okay, okay. Well, and when this topic, yes, I remember that I spoke with Mark Hudson about the power metal nowadays in Europe. According to him, the power metal is not bring something special, especially in Europe or especially the main countries where the power metal appears. But now he is more related with the power metal from Japan, because as you can see in YouTube, there's a new like I don't know, like 20 or 25 or 30 bands from Japan that are releasing power metal stuff. Each weekend we have one, two, or three, four or bands for Japan releasing power metal stuff. And according to him, the power metal from Japan has more interesting situation to the style, because they mix their essence for the K-pop or something like that. So they mix something in difference in this kind of stuff. So, do you hear this new wave of the power metal from Japan?
Not enough, but it's good that you mention it because always liked the Japanese influence in music. I even like the influence from different countries. For example, in the past, of course, when the Scandinavian bands more mixed with the bands from Germany and even Italy, who brought with the Rhapsody this somehow opera symphonic style into the power metal. This changed a lot, and I really appreciate the scene from Japan because they are very fresh. They have awesome musicians. For myself, stick some time into this genre of game music. So there are a lot of composers, maybe for Final Fantasy for the series, the composers of this game music. They often have their own bands. There's one band called Black Mages, still some years ago, but it's a composer of the Final Fantasy stuff who does some metal with all these game music he once created. And this led to another era of young bands who play in their style. And yeah, I think we shouldn't underestimate how much influence the Japanese scene has into the scene, even from the instruments. If you remember back in the 80s, most of the world music shaping instruments were from Japan. So all these synthesizers, keyboards that defined a century of music is they are created in Japan mostly. So from companies like Korg, Roland, whatever. These are all Yamaha, all Japanese companies, and they create awesome instruments that influence whole genres. And I will surely, now as you mentioned it, will have a look on these new power metal bands.
Hmm. Okay,
But I
okay.
haven't heard so much of them now.
Okay, okay, okay. Now, well, other topic that is now, according to many people, that is over releases. We have the releases now in by weekend. You can see that it's not like the 80s or 90s when you have like 60 releases, but in 6 months. Now
Yeah.
we have 30 or 40 releases per weekend. So in a lot of styles, not just power metals. We have a lot of styles in the metal industry for this. So how do you see this topic of the overwhelming releases per weekend? For some people it's good, and for the other people it's bad.
It's insane. It's really insane. And it's insane for a musician because you have somehow stand out of this mess on bands, but even for as a fan. So I try for myself to keep somehow up to date, and it's nearly impossible. And sometimes I find a band that I really like, and it was just on accident because there is not this one source that tells you, okay, there's some new stuff, have a look on it. So you have to rely on stuff like Spotify and algorithms that somehow know what you want and present you each week the new stuff from your preferred style, but this also excludes some stuff that I've never heard before. And I think it's very hard. It's also great because much more people now have the opportunity to create their music. All the production is so much easier. When I even think back the last 10 years, how much easier it got to create an album, to create art, to communicate with each other. And of course, this gives a lot of people the chance to show their music. And it is somehow also wrong when only the, what about 50 bands that are omnipresent have the chance to promote themselves. Now everybody can make music and everybody can somehow promote its stuff. But it makes it much harder to discover it and to stand out of the masses. So for us, of course, it's kind of problem to when you read, for example, people write, okay, you did an awesome album, it's great. Why are you so underestimated? People should know you better. So the question is, yes, but how? Where's the place where we can show our music and that everybody can find it? So we are still in a great position that we can do interviews with magazines like yours and that we got recognized. And somehow when we do some new output, then other magazines will talk about us, but I don't want to start a new band from scratch nowadays because it's so hard to get the attention that you deserve. But
Hmm.
still, no solution for this. It's all has a dark and a light side. So Hard to
Okay.
answer again.
Okay. I understand. So we are very close to this the interview, Jan. And one of the last questions from this interview is now related to the topics of the festivals or the gigs,
Yeah.
because in the beginning, you can see that it's mostly all bands in the beginning played with amps in the live presentations, but now there are people that are trying to just not spend a lot of money in a gig or in a good or in a tour in a gig, and mostly of the producers of each city are using just plugins or using these just no more amps in these two in live presentations and more things. So there's a lot of things happening now with the technology, especially. So now, how do you see this topic nowadays? That mostly all the producers are trying to, yes, not spend a lot with the full sound, just to just and just to save money sometimes. So how do you see this topic that now the festivals or small gigs doesn't use it more any longer amps, or a lot of crowd people use it to do a live presentation?
Now, to be honest, I think it's quite sad, and I knew the advantages, of course, when you have to tour, and we bring still our amps with us, and this means to rent a sprinter or a large trailer, and this costs money and time, and of course, I see this is a big advantage if you just have your small rack with everything inside it, but somehow something is missing on stage, I would say. And this is this old spirit, and now I sound very old when I tell this, but making music somehow is related to bring your stuff on stage, to put microphones on it, to do something that is real. And I think nowadays this is the thing that goes missing more and more, to have something real. And if you have a band that plays on stage, it's somehow I for myself, I like when I feel the stage, when the ground is shaking and when there's a huge amp beside me and I feel the drum. This is this emotional thing, and this makes all this music stuff so emotional and so great. And I hope that this won't go missing. It's even this the thing with backing tracks. Of course, it's easier to say, okay, when we still have our click and we can add some choirs, or okay, we can also add the keyboards, and okay, let's put the bass also on the backing tracks. And in the end, we are at a point where other music genres are still today that we're just a singer on stage with everything that comes from a from a computer, from a laptop. And metal was always a genre where music, making music, the craftsmanship was the important part. So where you can say you can do what music you like, but if you want to do metal, you have to be a skilled musician and you have to know your equipment, you have to know your technique, and you have to know your roots and whatever, and you have to train and you have to practice and all this stuff. And get your equipment, talk about which amp is used for this kind of guitar, this kind of keyboard, and so on and so on. And we should be careful not to skip all this part just for make it easier to play on the stage. That isn't the stage then anymore, because when you just have a clean stage and people playing on plastic instruments. So I would say vintage is not that bad, and I'm quite sure this will come back. I had one gig last year. I saw Clutch, you know the band Clutch.
Yep. See. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I saw them live, and at the first, I didn't know why I liked this concert so much, but then I saw, okay, what they did, they had just a small backdrop, just a small backdrop with Clutch with the name. It wasn't even big, just the name. They put a carpet on the stage, like you do a carpet to absorb the sound, and then they had their amps, they had their drum kits, they had the guitars, and it looked like a rehearsal room. And it wasn't no decoration, no special lighting, no special costumes. It was just these guys playing awesome music, and it looked and felt like pure music. And I totally enjoyed this concert. There was no huge intros, orchestration, and all this stuff, and stuff. So it was just they came on stage, took their guitars, and played awesome music, and enjoyed it so much. And think this is something that people maybe forget forget about making everything easier and smaller. That this simple making music is the essence of what we do in metal, and this should always be in focus, and we should not skip this. I really sound like an old guy now, but I'm getting older, so I guess I can say this.
Okay, okay. Well, Jan, we arrived to the sad moments of this interview. I hope you enjoyed this one like me. This album is a great one. Congratulations on this new one. And
Thank
perhaps
you.
you want to add something to your Latin American fans that expect someday a full Latin American tour here will more rules in the next coming years. Or perhaps, and also perhaps you want to add something to your metal followers.
Of course, I want, at first, I want to say thank you. So, when you listen to this interview, that means somehow our music has reached you, and this makes me very proud. So, I'm very happy to be able to do this music, and I hope that we will get the chance to play more live, even in your region. I would love to come and would love to meet you because we got a lot of receptions and a lot of nice messages on social media. So, I hope that we will make it to your place. And the over thing that I always say in interviews, if you have a band that you like, go to the concert, buy the t-shirt. That's the way you can help this to keep this alive. That's an awesome theme and an awesome scene, and we should all proud to be part of it. So thank you very much.